I lived in an old 2-bedroom, 3-story walk-up for a time in my early 20s in Toronto. A few days after moving in, my roommate Mike chides me in the morning for banging on the wall that separated our bedrooms and pacing back and forth across the apartment at night. We just agreed he must have been dreaming, or the noises were from other apartments, as I had done no such thing. We left it at that, but this became a regular nightly occurrence. Shortly thereafter, I started noticing at certain times in my own bedroom the cloying smell of women's perfume mixed with a damp, musty smell. Imagine an old person's clothes left on a damp basement floor near a litter box that wasn't being changed often enough, and you get the idea. What made it even weirder is that I would be filled with a sudden horrible sense of dread a few moments before the smell would begin. Mike then moved out only 4 months into our 1-year lease, which meant I was left footing the rent for the entire place until I could find another roommate. I had decided to try and sleep in his bedroom shortly after he moved to see if things would get better. The very first night I slept in his former room, I had an incredibly detailed and realistic nightmare of myself, standing in the dimly lit bathroom of the apartment and cutting my own face with a large shard of glass while staring into the broken bathroom mirror. It was only broken in my dream. Soon after that, I started to hear the loud bangs at night and the flushing of the toilet in the bathroom. Several times, the hot water in the bathtub turned on full blast in the middle of the night. One of the freakier things that happened not too long before I moved out is the time I was woken up by the TV. It was blaring the 1982 film Poltergeist on City TV at about 2 a.m. That was an old analog TV that can be turned on and switch channels using a knob. It was the first time it turned on by itself, and Poltergeist was showing of all movies. When I was around 12, my mother had to go out of town for a bit, and she left me home alone for a few days. We lived close to our relatives, so it wasn't a big deal back then. She refused to give me a mobile phone because she figured she could just call me on the landline if anything came up. She told me the date when she'd be back, and that was that. The date arrives, and I hear my mum knocking on the door downstairs and calling my name. My dog, who loves her, got excited when she heard her voice and ran down ahead to greet her. She got to the door, freaked the hell out, and whimpered back upstairs to me for some reason. The knocks continued, and it sure sounded like my mom's voice, but I decided not to go down, seeing how spooked my dog was. The phone started ringing, and the knocking stopped. I picked up the phone to hear my mum say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I have to stay one more day here. I'll head home tomorrow." To this day, I still wonder what would have happened if I had opened the door. Back when I was 18, I had a mate who reckoned he was getting haunted by this menacing black figure. I was kinda dubious. So one night, I'm sleeping over in his parents' big old wooden mansion. He gives me his parents' bed for the night, and it was the perfect storm of creepiness. His stepmother had a massive porcelain doll collection facing the bed, and I hate those. The family dog was an old Aussie sheepdog, but with cloudy white cataracts covering his eyes, so he looked freaky too. Old house, porcelain dolls, dog with white clouded eyes. Just perfect. So sometime after midnight, I wake up in his parents' bed. A freezing wind is blowing through the open door in a closed house. Also, I got a feeling of intense terror. To top it off, the dog is hiding under the bed and crying. I'm sure it wasn't just a nightmare. Then, a big, black-robed figure coasts in through the door and hovers over the 4-poster bed. It's about 8 feet tall. The temperature is icy cold, and it's scaring the hell out of me. The dark figure just hovers there for a full minute while I try and wake up. Unfortunately, I am awake. Then, it suddenly vanished. I lie there dead still and too scared to move while the dog whines under the bed. I am too scared to check on the dog because if it stares at me with those cloudy white eyes, I will die. Once I gathered the courage, I went to my friend's room and told him what happened. He calmly answered, "Now, you know what I go through every night." He then rolled over and went back to sleep. A few weeks later, He told me they got someone from the church to do an exorcism. It sounded vanilla to me, just some prayers and holy water, but it worked apparently. This wasn't me, but my ex, and it still weirds me out when I think about it. One day he went for a bike ride, rode around town, and came back home. This is where it gets weird. Seemingly to him, he arrived home the same day, some 2 hours later, like his normal ride. His family freaked when he walked inside, though. He had been missing for 2 full days. No one could find him or reach his phone, and they even started to get the police involved. He literally thought he just went for a bike ride and came home. The end. He still has no idea what happened, and the doctor who checked him up said he was fine too. More weirdly, though, the date and time on his phone was 2 days behind when he returned. About 2 years ago, my sister, her infant nephew and I moved into an apartment. We later discovered that it was used as an elderly community. From the moment we moved in, we felt uneasy. The weird feeling wasn't enough to get us to ditch our seemingly awesome apartment, though. It had 2 bedrooms, allowed dogs, and even had a pool. A few months after moving in, weird stuff started happening. Shadows moving in an otherwise still room, objects not being where they had been left, baby toys talking to themselves in dark rooms. Just the kind of thing to make your skin crawl. To make matters worse, my bedroom would be freezing even when it was bloody hot outside, and the closet door was always broken in a slightly open position. It didn't matter how often we would get it fixed, it would instantly be broken again. Now this is where it gets a little crazy. One morning, I woke, and my bed had been moved. I hadn't even as much as wrinkled my sheets while sleeping, yet my bed had been slid 3 feet away from the wall. I then began having pretty intense night terrors. I'd jump out of bed screaming and throwing my blankets, begging for my sister to save me. This would happen at least once every night. One night I had a particularly vivid night terror, only I didn't feel frightened. I jumped up in bed, looked around and saw eyes peering around my broken closet door. I leaned in and saw a pale man, uncanny face, probably mid-20s, staring back at me. I said in the calmest voice I could muster, "I'm going to give you a few minutes alone, but then you need to leave." I stumbled to the living room and sat on the couch for 10 minutes, then walked back to my bed. From that moment on, no more baby toys talked. My closet door closed with ease and my bedroom was normal temperature. I live in a 36-story apartment building and was on my way to go out to the mall. We live on the 30th floor. I get in the lift at floor 30 and press the ground floor button. When the lift opens at the ground, I notice the whole foyer and lobby area is completely different. The couches, lights, colors, etc. are all different. I was really taken aback by it. I make my way to the exit, and after seeing the outside area and then looking back to the building entrance, I realized that the building isn't the one I live in. This building was in the same local area not too far away from mine, but I have no explanation as to how or when I got there. This all happened while I was in the lift. I'm the kind of guy who is very skeptic and down to earth, but this still gets me. I get regular medical checkups too, and the doctor says I'm fine. It was Columbus Day weekend many years ago. My best friend was very depressed, and her life was falling apart. Everything just sucked for her. I drove home from school for the weekend, and on my first night, I had a vivid dream where my best friend talked to me. She told me how things were better for her, and she wanted to feel good again. Then, she told me to follow my dreams, and that I could be anything I wanted. After that, she apologized and asked me to tell her parents it wasn't their fault, said a few other personal things, and then disappeared. I woke up right away. I was freezing cold even though I had tons of blankets on. I immediately called her, but she didn't pick up. I freaked out and sent her a text saying these exact words: "Life is too precious to end so fast. I love you, and I know everything will pass. I want to grow old by my best friend's side." She called me right away, crying. She was about to drive her car off a bridge notoriously known for suicides. She now has a family, and we meet whenever we get the chance.